Hi, welcome to Get a Job, Tips and Secrets for the Academic Job Market. I am Lee Hall. You can find me online, leahall.wordpress.com, where I write about issues in teaching and higher education. And if you have questions that you would like to see covered here on a future episode, please feel free to email me, leahall39@gmail.com. All right, so today we're going to talk about after the interview. What happens when your campus interview is over and now it's time for you to go home? This is a difficult time, I know, because you're just kind of in limbo waiting to hear. So here's the thing. Before you leave the interview, it's perfectly fine. Everybody's expecting it. Go ahead and ask about the timeline before you leave. The appropriate place to do this is you can either directly ask the search committee chair if you're having a one-on-one meeting at some point. You can also, usually in an interview, you will have a meeting where it is you and the search committee. They're asking you questions, you ask them questions. That is also an appropriate place to ask about the timeline. I would put that question at the end of the meeting. I wouldn't lead with that question, okay? So you can just ask, what's the timeline for filling the position? And the search committee chair will give you their best guess, okay? It's an approximate. Don't hold us to it. We're doing the best that we can with the information that we have. So let's say that you're interviewing at the beginning of January and you're the very first person to interview, and let's say they're interviewing 2 or even 3 more people. They might tell you, you're our first interview, okay? Interviews are going to be done at the end of February or whenever they're going to be done, all right? And then after that, I know where I am, it usually just takes a week or two once interviews are over before an offer goes out, okay? Sometimes it moves faster, sometimes it moves slower. It depends on things that are typically not in control of the search, the search committee and the search committee chair do not have under their control, okay? But they can give you an approximate, like you should expect to hear around the beginning of March, things like that. So you can ask. Then go home, be patient, all right? Just hang out and wait, right? If you have other interviews, keep going on your other interviews. Keep working on your dissertation or whatever it is that you're doing, keep doing it. You need to wait to be contacted. You do not need to be emailing the search committee chair or anybody else asking about timelines unless you have a job offer from another institution, and I will cover that in a separate video. But in general, if you don't have a pressing need to talk to anybody other than the fact that you're just impatient and you want to know, you just hang out and you wait to be contacted. It's tough, it's hard, but that's what you got to do. So now while you're hanging out at home waiting to be contacted, right? Interviews, the search committee finishes the interviews. Different institutions have different processes about how they decide who they're going to hire. So I'm not going to get into what we do because it's not necessarily going to be the same. I know it's not the same as what other people do. And then there'll be a decision about who to offer the job to. Now, let's say that you're one of 3 candidates. And let's say that they decide that you and another candidate are outstanding and they would love to have you both. They can only have one of you, but they would love to have both of you. They're happy with either one of you. They might decide to offer it to you first. They might decide to offer it to somebody else first. All right. Again, we'll cover that in a different video. You won't know this is happening, but I'll talk about what it means in a separate video. So you may have to wait a little while if you're not the first choice, but they like you because they might offer the job to somebody else and negotiations. And if it works, then you're not going to get the job offer. But if it doesn't work, if it falls through, then you could find yourself with a job offer, okay? Or you could be the first choice and find yourself with a job offer immediately, all right, once the interviews are done. But decisions get made, offers go out, negotiations begin, all right? And then it goes from there, okay? If you are the only person they're interested in hiring and you say no, then it's going to end up being a failed search. And you shouldn't worry about that. That happens all the time. That's just the way that it is, right? If we don't get the person that we want and we don't find the other 2 people that we interviewed to be qualified, then we'll re-advertise next year or something. Here's the other thing to know. If you don't get the job, typically what happens, ideally, is the search committee chair is going to call you, all right? If you're getting the job offer, typically that comes from the dean and you interact with the dean directly around negotiations. But if you don't get the job offer, the search committee chair will probably call you. This is if you interviewed. It's a polite thing to do. If you haven't come out for an interview, you're probably just going to get a letter, an email in the mail, something like that. And if you come out for an interview, even though you might get a form letter from the university because HR might require it, you typically are going to get a phone call from the search committee chair saying, "I'm sorry, we've hired somebody," or whatever it is that they're going to say. The search has ended. We're not going to be able to extend an offer to you. They're not going to be able to tell you why, most likely. And honestly, like, I would love to be able to give people feedback because sometimes it's not you, it's us, okay? Sometimes you are great, and I'm really upset to have to call people and tell them we can't offer you the job, but it has nothing to do with you, and I wish I could tell you that. Or sometimes I wish I could say, hey, you know what? In the future, here are some things that you can do that are really small that I think would really help improve your odds, but I can't do that, all right? It's against university HR policy to have those kinds of discussions with candidates. So unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get any feedback. And I really recommend you don't ask for any feedback, but I mean, you could, you never know. But typically, HR policies don't allow us to give you feedback. So that's what happens after the interview. After you go home, when you're hanging out on your end, we keep interviewing people, discussions happen around who to offer the job to, offers go out. People are told that they're not getting hired, etc. That's what you can expect. That's what it looks like.